In this module, we'll focus on data management in ArchiCAD. Still at a basic level, without diving into expression-based programming, something we leave pending for the next section. For now, we'll go through everything related to the creation and management of classifications, the different structures available for classifying your elements, and everything you need to know about properties, and the various types of data that can be stored. I will also explain how classifications and properties are related, and we'll finish by putting everything into practice by storing the correct data in our BIM elements. Remember to take the course at your own pace. You can pause the videos and practice the concepts on your own. And as always, make sure to review all the supporting materials I have provided throughout the lessons. Having said that, let's get started with the first lesson. Alright, so let's start off our new section, commenting a little bit about what's going to happen here. The idea here is to work with metadata and properties, okay? Or in other words, non-graphical information. The main example that we're going to generate and the main example that we're going to work on, for this section I'm providing a bunch of random information about different types of objects. You got general furniture, you got electrical furniture, you got sanitary furniture, and the idea is to register successfully all this information in the most organized way possible inside ArchiCAD, okay? We're not going to model anything, we're not going to create a basic object, nothing like that, but the idea is to create and manage metadata and properties. And we're going to achieve this with the use of the classifications and properties functions inside ArchiCAD. So pretty much what we're going to do in first place is to position native ArchiCAD objects that we already have in the native library. I'm only going to share with you 2 extra objects. You can import them or you can switch them for any type of objects. Really, I'm also going to share for this example the product reference PDF file, which is this one over here, where you can review different type of information. Keep in mind that these objects are from the Latin American context, okay? And of course, if you're in another country, the objects will be really different from one region to another. So feel free to replace this with whichever data you want to apply. Otherwise, the main idea here is not to worry about the type of data that too much, but worry more about the workflow. The workflow is the most important thing I want to share with you for this section. So yeah, I made sure that I translate this as best as possible. Okay, general information, and we're going to capture everything inside ArchiCAD. The main idea here is to cover how the property manager is going to work, and also how the classification manager is going to work, besides the general idea of what's going on with classifications and what's going on with properties. So having said this, for the next section, I'm going to explain a bit of theory about classifications and properties, and then we can move on to the practical part. Now, before we start, to give you a general idea of why we need classifications and properties all together. If we open up right now in options, you will find pretty much everything right over here. You got the property manager and you got the classification manager, which are going to be the 2 main windows we use for this particular section, and the next one, which is about expressions, okay? In first place, let's open up property manager, and right over here you will notice that there's keep in mind that this is the template. This is a native ArchiCAD template, but already we got just a bunch of information that we can specify. You got information like general ratings for a product info, information about the manufacturing, information about main construction, environmental, openings, flooring, zones, and the list goes on and on and on, okay? But this is just the basic information. Now you can imagine if, let's say, we're working on a more detailed project, executive or constructive project, with a level of definition, lot, 350 or even 400, well, the amount of data, the amount of information is just going to be insane, okay? Keeping this in mind, you can also notice that, for example, if we model a basic wall over here, let's model something like this. ArchiCAD in the wall settings, right over here, this is the other window that we're going to comment for this section. For each object, we always get a classification and properties window over here, okay? And right over here, you can notice that the data is going to be filtered. You're not going to have all the possible available data from the general database that ArchiCAD integrates, but it's only going to be the relevant data for this wall. The rest of the data is going to be hidden, okay? For example, if we create an opening, something like a door, maybe a window, okay, let's select the door. Let's go into classifications and properties. You will notice that we only get the data relevant to the door, okay? And we also will get the data relevant to the window. Let's position this window. Let's go to classifications and properties. The same will happen over here, okay? For example, let's position any type of object. Let's check out the classifications and properties. And yes, we only have data relevant to this object. So ArchiCAD is filtering out some information, some properties from all the available properties in the ArchiCAD database, okay? And this is happening because in first place, some classifications, for example, site, space, elements, components, elements, you will notice that right over here, some type of data is going to be linked for each classification, okay? We got elements classification, which will have available this type of data, space classification, available this type of data, site classification, available this other type of data. It's not going to have pretty much all types of 500 data that is going on inside ArchiCAD. So the idea first is that we in first place create classifications so we can help filter out which data is going to be relevant for each type of object. And the interesting thing is that there are standards that we can use for each type of region, for each type of country, that will help us classify each element a little bit better, so it is understandable with other collaborators, with other companies. This is just a standard that we can take into consideration to work more efficiently. This is a page that I'm going to comment in a little bit, but we got a bunch of different standards dependent upon each country. In Italy, for example, we got the HG Demanio standard. Maybe in Germany we got the ONORM standard. In the UK, in United Kingdom, we got Uniclass or Uniformat. In United States, we can use, for example, OmniClass, and the list goes on and on, okay? You can even, for example, review PDF files. There are multiple formats redacted in PDF formats, which will explain how the classification system is going to work. For example, Uniformat, which is a classification system used in United Kingdom, in UK, is going to have a 3-level structure. We can classify major elements, major group elements is going to be the level number 1. We can classify these with letter A, B, C, or D. A is going to be substructure, B is going to be the shell, C is going to be something related to the interiors, D is going to be services, and so on, okay? And then we also get a secondary level, which is going to be level 2. We got major group, then we got group elements. You can classify something as a substructure, but this one is going to be divided into foundations, basement, or superstructure, which is, well, this one's shell, superstructure, exterior enclosure, roofing, and the list goes on. And then we can even divide this into more something a little bit more specific. In level 3, we can classify these as an individual elements. We can use the code, the ID A10 and 10, A10 and 20, A10 and 30, and so on, to refer to an element such as part of a standard foundation, maybe special foundation, maybe some type of slab on grade. Then we got basement excavation, walls, floor construction, and so on. Okay, so you can, for example, create specific nomenclature for each type of classification. Okay, it's going to make the process of identifying elements much easier for other people, and it's also the everything is based upon an international standard which is accepted by each region. For example, to give you another quick idea, we can also go ahead, use Uniclass or OmniClass. For example, OmniClass, which is used in the United States. If we we visualize this document, we can find different types of OmniClass numbers, which will refer to different types of classified elements. Okay, it's going to give you the level of the specific level. Level 1 is general, and the higher the level, the more specific the element. Okay, so yeah, you can, for example, visualize different types of classifications. For example, this code is going to be everything related to the unit masonry stabilization. Okay, or if you use, for example, this code over here, you refer to all types of masonry elements. Okay, so yeah, this depends upon the region. I'm going to include these 3 PDF files in this present lesson, so you can take a quick view, take a quick look for these different standards. But I want to make clear that we're not going to use a specific standard for this section. What we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch, but in a more general, in a more simple way. Okay, we're going to take as inspiration Uniformat, which is one of my favorites, but we're going to work on this in a more free manner. Okay, as always, take as much time as you require. Make sure you check out, just give a quick glance to Properties Manager, give a quick glance to the Classification Manager, give a quick glance on what's going on in the Classification and Properties tab for each ArchiCAD element, and also check out the different PDF files that I'm going to annex over here. Okay, and having said this, now let's proceed with the next lesson onto another type of topic. Alright, so for this example, for working purposes, in the PDF brochure that I included within the section right over here, we're working on 9 different objects. But the same thing I tell all my students at the university, you don't really need to register the information for all the 9 objects. Feel free to select maybe one of the different categories. You can work with electrical furniture, you can go ahead and only work on the sanitary, or you can go ahead and work with general furniture. Okay, or if you want to practice this even further, you can go ahead and register information for all the 9 different objects. Okay, so make sure you select one of the categories you want to put into practice. It is not required for all the objects. And before we begin, what we want to do is obviously create the 9 different elements. Okay, I want to make clear that classifications and properties is available for pretty much every type of model or element you got within ArchiCAD. It doesn't have to be necessarily only for objects. You can apply information, you can apply classifications and properties for walls, for columns, for slabs, for beams, for doors and windows, for pretty much all types of beam elements. Even, for example, some 2D elements will also include properties. So keep that small detail in mind. Okay? So before we start, how about we go over here, design. Let's take the object tool and let's position the electrical furniture we got over here. For the electrical objects, we aren't really going to use the object tool. We use the lamp tool. Okay, this is more for rendering purposes, but we can also recycle and use interior lamps over here. Okay, so how about we take a basic spotlight, which is going to be the recess spot over here. Position this first object. Let's create a copy over here, maybe one more here. If I remember well, we got a suspended, well, this is electrical furniture. We got spotlight, then we got a suspended light, and then we got a wall washer. Okay, so let's switch this to the pendant lamp over here. Yes, I believe that this is going to be the pendant lamp. Wow, this one is actually huge. The spotlight is way too tiny over here, but doesn't really matter. Okay, and let's find any wall lamp. This one might work better. Yeah, I think that one, yeah, it's going to be this one. You can even jump into the model, the light settings over here, and switch the type of lamp you want to use. For this case, the one closest to this model is going to be something like this. Okay, so it doesn't have to be necessarily exactly the same type of model. It can be something generic. Okay, and yeah, this type of lamp, well, it looks quite nice. I think this is a little bit closer to what we are trying to achieve. Okay, so this is going to be the electrical furniture. If you want to use another type of category, for example, the sanitary furniture, you use well, pretty much all the basic objects we can find in ArchiCAD. Let's go over here. Let's search for WC. So yeah, we got the pretty much most basic WC over here. Let's position this one. Let's create one more copy and one more. Okay, the other object is going to be a sink over here. Let's find something nice. Well, it's not going to be a sink, it's going to be a basin. That's how you say it in English, okay? And the last one is going to be just the shower kit. Just these basic objects. So these are the three we use for the sanitary category. And then for the general category, we only have one object, which is a general object, which is going to be the night table we got over here. So let's first off position that one. I'm going to go over here to the cabinets and shelves, and it's going to be the nightstand, this one over here. And for the rest of the two specific objects, what we're going to do is, for this lesson, I'm going to include these two objects. These are in GSM type of file extension, which is a native extension for an ArchiCAD object. So what you can do is simply take one of these objects. If I remember well, you simply drag it, drop it, and pretty much that's it. You don't really need to do anything else in ArchiCAD. So simply take the objects I'm providing you within this lesson, drag the first design chair, and then take the second design chair, drag and drop inside ArchiCAD. Keep in mind that you have to do this process in the ground floor. You can't do this in 3D. The same will recommended in the hot linked section. Okay, so yeah, pretty much with this with regards the objects, we got something funny going on over here, which is a little bit insane. If you got this type of problem, you simply go over here to the floor plan and section and make sure that you override the object surface. In custom settings, surface, you can select the first surface, which is going to be some type of wood, and the second one, which is going to be some type of basic white paint. Okay, and we got the basic designer chair. For the second object, the same will happen. Go over here, custom settings. Well, this one is in Spanish, but just search for surface, superficies in Spanish. You got surface 1, 2, and 3, and simply rearrange the surface for this object. And there it is. With this, we already created the 9 example objects we're going to use for this lesson. You can always position exactly the same model, but for this practical case, just make sure that it is similar to the examples I'm providing you within these 3 different lists. So as always, take a moment, make sure you first off prepare the objects, and now for the next lesson we can go on and comment about the property and classification manager. So having created the different objects as well recommended, everything we are looking forward to do is going to be located in the menu bar, options, and right over here make sure you activate the property manager or classification manager. It is, we could say this one is interlinked, and we can jump from one another easily. I'm going to explain how in a second, okay? Let's activate the property manager. As the name implies, this is where we create the different metadata, the different properties. When I say the word metadata, I refer to it as information about information. Okay, so this one is going to be the data, the information that is contained within each field. Okay, and this is going to be metadata, which is the information about the information or the title of the field. So when I say the term metadata, I refer to the title of the field. Okay, and when I say data or property, I will refer to the property that is being registered. Okay, so just keep these small two details in mind. Okay, or you got the name, default as in ArchiCAD, and you got the type of data, something we're going to comment in a little bit. Okay, so property manager, in first place, this is where you can find all the different data sets you're creating. You can create different groups for different types of data you're planning to register. Data about the manufacturers, data about the construction, the materials, technical data about environmental or thermal or hygroscopic, mechanical, whichever type of set you want to create. Okay, right over here you got the different buttons. You can create new data, you can create new folders or groups, you can duplicate the data, you can delete them. You can also, as always, you will find the ability to import, export the data into other types of ArchiCAD files. And then you got the titles, the property group names, the description. If you select a property group, if you select a group, it's going to give you these parameters. But if you select data, if you select the metadata, the property, it's going to give you the value definition, where we're going to comment about this in the upcoming lesson, where all the magic happens. Okay, and also you get this window, which is availability for the classifications. This property in which classifications is going to show up. In long story short, okay, you can make this available for pretty much all the types of classifications you create, for non-type of classification, or you can customize this however you want. Now you can also notice something interesting going on over here. You can activate actually the classification manager from the property manager. Okay, as I already commented, this is completely linked, and you actually work on these two windows at the same time. Okay, at the same time you create changes over here, you also want to adjust everything over here. And you will notice that in the classification manager, if we close this real quick, let's open this up once again from scratch, but this time from options, classification manager. You will notice the same going on over here. You also get the property manager button over here, which is going to open up the window we just commented earlier. Okay, and in the classification manager, as the name implies, you will notice something similar going on over here. You got the list of the different classifications. If you open up the classifications, you can notice the level number 1, level number 2, level 3. You can create the structure and manage the classification structure however you want. You also got the possibility to create a completely new type of classification system, or you can duplicate everything. You can create a new classification or a branch of this classification. You can delete them. And you can also import or export classification systems. This is where, in a moment, in the next lesson, I'm going to comment a bit about the BIM content packages provided by Graphisoft and how you can accelerate the process a little bit. But let's comment about this in a moment. You also got the window where you can name your classifications, give descriptions, and finally, which properties are available for each classifications. As well recommended, when you assign a classification to any type of element, you only want to make available certain type of fields that are relevant to that classification, that are relevant to that element. Okay, you don't want to make available and saturate your element with 5,000 different types of data, where in fact we only need maybe just 15 specific types of data we want to register. So maybe the ArchiCAD database has just an insane amount of properties, and you of course want to filter this out with classifications. Okay, you can edit this, and yeah, that's how, in long story short, classification manager and property manager is going to work. We are going to be working on this all together, but for explanation purposes, in the next lesson, having said this, we're going to start off with classifications, and then we will continue with properties in second place. So for this section, we said that we're going to create the classifications from scratch in a moment. But if you want to reuse a standardized type of classification, you can proceed with the BIM content packages that we have available by Graphisoft for download. In first place, you got the BIM content packages, which are pretty much classification systems, okay, with some type of mapping process predefined. And you also got ArchiCAD and COBie packages if you want to exchange information using this specific template. But let's focus for now in BIM content packages. If you scroll down a little bit, well, you got the how to use tutorial, which I'm going to explain in a moment. Right over here, you can find the country, language, okay? You can pretty much scroll down, visualize multiple standardized formats of classification systems. And if you find something that you want to use, for example, let's make a quick example with Uniforma 2. Right over here, we got this one, okay? Let's click Uniforma 2. It's going to download an XML type of file extension. And in ArchiCAD, what we're going to do, once we have opened up the classifications manager, let's minimize the basic ArchiCAD classification system. You can simply click this small arrow over here, simply minimize this, and let's proceed with import option. You simply click this one over here. Let's navigate to downloads, and right over here you can notice we can select the downloaded HTML or XML, if I remember well, the standardized format we have downloaded. Let's open this up. It's going to tell you it was successfully imported. Press OK. And right over here, you can notice that now we have two different classification systems. The one predefined by the template, but also the one that is standardized, which is Uniformat. Okay, the interesting thing here is that you can manage multiple classification systems within ArchiCAD. You can create your own classification system, but also you can assign two different classifications to an object, which is also going to be based upon a classification system. You can only assign one classification in one system and only one classification in the other system. But you can't assign two classifications at the same time in one system. That's not possible, okay? So yeah, you can notice over here in the same example that I showed earlier, for example, Uniformat, which has three main groups, major group, and individual. You can notice the same will go over here in ArchiCAD. You got substructure, shell, interior, etc. If you open up substructure, you will find two grouped elements. If you, for example, open up foundations, you got standard, special, slab, and grade, and you got multiple types of classifications that are already predefined, okay? Something interesting going on over here that I want you to pay attention is notice how the nomenclature is going to be more specific each time. You get, you start with something as A, then it's going to combine A10. If you want something specific, it's going to take the previous one, A10, and add another extension, A10. And then A10, 11, 12, 13, and so on. So this is pretty much the system that I'm going to use for the example. This is the one I actually like. We can name everything in general aspects and then simply go on and use and define something a little bit more specific. Okay, but yeah, pretty much if you notice everything is standardized, you can review the different classifications. For example, in services, we got a group which is plumbing, then we got plumbing fixtures, and then you can specify whether this object is a bathtub, sink, lavatory, urinal, water closet, shower, or whichever object you want to assign, okay? The same if you are, for example, from United States, or you want another type of format, you can go ahead with master format, OmniClass, but we download both of these formats, master format, and let's proceed with OmniClass. In ArchiCAD, we can, for example, once again import a system. Let's go with OmniClass, and let's import another one, which is going to be the master format. And there it is. You can notice we got different standardized classification systems. Okay, master format, the same nomenclature that we already commented earlier in the PDF examples that I showed you. Right over here you can find them. So if you want to proceed with a standardized classification system, feel free to use the Beam content packages over here. I'm going to provide the link in this lesson. And having said this, let's proceed with the next lesson, where we're going to start from scratch with our own classification system. Alright, if you want to create your own classifications according to the rules you have on your own enterprise or your own workflow, let's proceed with the first step, new, and let's go ahead and new classification system button over here. Okay, simply activate this button. You can name this however you want. I'm going to name this as classification example. Okay, this is going to be the first version, the date at which I create the classification, source based on uniformat2, and just going to create a generic description over here. So yeah, I'm just going to write something like this. I apologize as always for my English, it's not perfect. I try my best, but right over here you can input whichever description you want to use. Okay, let's go ahead with OK. So it's going to create a new classification system right over here from scratch. Okay, you can review this information, and once you have created the system, which is going to give you the icon of a full tree, we proceed and let's go ahead with the next step, which is going to be the new classification in branch. If you keep in mind, the system is going to start everything from scratch. Small mistakes some of my students make, but this time it's new classification in branch. Okay, let's proceed. And my own personal workflow, which is more for working purposes, usually I just go with the type of specialty for a project. We got, for example, architecture, which we can use an ID which is arch. Okay, you got the structure, going to go ahead with structure. Okay, then we got the finishes, then we got, for example, the masonry, then we got glazing. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead with basic IDs for this system. Okay, for the next level, this is going to be level number 1. Okay, for level number 2, what we're going to do is we're simply going to take the ID, the general system ID, and we're simply going to add a point and a 0, 1. Okay, so it's going to be architecture number 1 or architecture number 2, something like that. Okay, and for the most specific level, which is level 3, we simply add another point. Okay, so it's going to be architecture 0.01, 0.01, and then 0.01, 0.02, and so on, until we get to something a little bit more specific. So for this example, for this section, I'm just going to create a 3-level system, classification system over here with this type of nomenclature. Okay, so the ID, let's set this as arc. Okay, this is going to be architecture specialty. Okay, you can input whichever description you want. I'm going to leave this empty for now. Let's press OK. And then I'm just going to take a moment and I'll create multiple types of classification branches following the different specialties we can find in a constructive project. Okay, so I'm just going to create basic branches named something like this, following the different constructive stages we got in a project, okay? Keep in mind that I'm doing the best I can to translate this to international version from Latin America, but feel free to adapt this to your own region. In your own country, you got your own codes, you got your own process. As always, feel free to adapt this to your own region, okay? And once we got, for example, let's go ahead with, oh, I actually forgot the most important one, which is going to be the one we actually use for this section, furniture, okay? Let's name this furniture and equipment, okay? So this is the one we're actually going to use for this project. The rest is just a clear example, okay? But now what we want to do, if you remember, is the type of furniture we got over here is going to be electrical, sanitary, and general. So let's create a branch in furniture following these three different types of elements, okay? I'm going to create a new branch, new classification in branch, which is going to be called, now in this case, remember that we're going to use the previous ID furniture, but I'm just going to add 0.01 and name this general furniture. So it's going to have the previous ID, and now it has 0.01 added to the nomenclature, okay? Let's create a new one, classification in branch. This one is going to be 0.02, and this is going to be sanitary furniture, okay? And then let's create another one, which is going to be a new classification in branch. And this one is going to be named furnitures 3. And let's name this electrical furniture, something like that. Okay, and now what we can do is go deeper into the third level. We got level 1, now we got level 2. And now we're going to create more classifications in order to specify level 3. So what we want to do, let's for example take the sanitary furniture, which is going to be this one, okay? The next one is going to be the specific product we want to classify as, okay? So let's just going to take the name into consideration, Sink Centurio Junior, okay? Which is the model of the sink we want to implement. This one is going to be new classification. It's going to be named furniture 02, but let's add another dot and include 01. Okay, so this is going to be a more deep type of nomenclature. And for the name, let's add this Sink Centurio Junior, the specific element we want to add. Okay. Now, the thing here is that I made a small mistake, but it's good because I can show you what's going to happen. Right over here, if you use new classification, it's going to create, yes, a new classification, but it's going to be inside the previous branch, okay? But if you use new classification in branch, it is meant that it's going to go on to the next level. Don't worry, we can always take, for example, this classification, simply drag it. You can organize this however you want, or you can set this inside another element. So you got the icon that this is a branch, which is going to branch into these classifications. And now we got another branch. And finally, we got the leaf icon, which is the specific classification. Okay. So following this same principle and nomenclature, what I'm going to do is I'll take a moment and I create the 9 different classifications I require for this example. So in the end, it's going to look something like this. We got the main branch, furniture, the secondary level. Okay, this one is level 1. The second level, furniture 0.01, sanitary furniture, as furniture 02, furniture 03. Okay, this is a second level. And we got the main, the most deep level for now, furniture 01, 01, 02, 03, which is level 3. The good thing about ArchiCAD is that if you create a mistake for some reason, it's going to tell you, hey, that ID has been created. So let's say that we make a small mistake because we're naming this a new object 03.03 as example, and let's name this object like wall washer generic, something like this. ArchiCAD is going to tell you, hey, you're already using this ID for another object. Please enter a different ID. So the good thing about here is that each classification object is going to have a unique ID. So this gives you the opportunity of creating a serious structure of managing your elements on your own enterprise or adhering to standardized objects which always will have a unique type of ID. So for this section, this is pretty much what we want. For this lesson, this is pretty much what we want to do. We only are looking forward now to create the 9 different classifications for the practice. As always, take as much time as you require. You don't really need to create the 9. We just make sure that the group you selected to work with sanitary, general, or electrical, just make sure you create the 3 different classifications. And for the next lesson, now we can proceed and jump into the properties. Alright, and having created the different classifications, now let's move on to the properties, okay? So you can access this in 2 different ways. You can hit the property manager directly over here, or once again, options and property manager. Let's go into property manager. For now, well, I'm going to close this one so I don't really have that one in the background and straight up only have the property manager window. So the window, as we already mentioned, is going to be quite similar to the classification manager. Right over here, you can search for your properties. You can check out the different properties you got from the template. You can create new properties over here. In first place, what I'm going to ask you is to maybe how about we hold down left shift and select pretty much all the properties we got from the template, and we proceed to delete them. Okay, so this is just for practical purposes now, but just keep in mind, heads up, there's some properties that are quite actually useful. For example, one of my favorites is number of bricks, okay, because this one actually have expressions. It's a more advanced function that we're going to cover actually in the next lesson, in the next section, because right over here the properties will calculate or will get the amount of bricks you got in a wall, where you input the different measurements, okay, you input the mortar thickness or the joint thickness of the wall, and then it's going to calculate number of bricks and brick volume. So there are some properties such as, for example, this one, which you can find always useful. But for this case, I'm going to delete pretty much everything, delete anyways, and let's start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is create a new one over here, but it's going to be a new group, okay? Because you can create new properties, groups. If you don't have anything, it's going to be a group by default. And for our example, we want to create 3 different groups: general furniture, electrical, and sanitary furniture. Okay, so let's start off with general furniture right over here. Okay, this is going to be the first group. Then let's create another group, which is going to be well, when you create the second one, now it's going to allow you to specify whether you want to create a group or a property. In this case, I want to create a property, which is going to be electrical furniture. Okay, we have to define this as a group. I actually forgot about that one. Okay, electrical furniture, there we go. And let's create the last one, which is going to be a group. Okay, and it's going to be the sanitary furniture right over here. Create the 3 different groups. And now when we created the first group, now what we have to do is start creating the metadata. Not the properties indeed, but the metadata, or in other words, the information about the information, the titles of the field, how you want to refer to them, but it's this data over here, okay? You're going to create a metadata or a field which is product, ID, link, finish, brand, and the price, okay? Keep in mind that the price is outdated, it's from 2019, so you can simply input price. and it's expressed in in pesos, Mexican coin, okay, Mexican currency. So just keep that small detail in mind, okay? It's going to obviously depend upon your region, so feel free to input whichever price or whichever characteristics you have in your own region. So let's go ahead, select general furniture. You can also, for example, click the plus button over here, if that does something, maybe not. Yeah, it actually does something. You click the plus button over here. It's going to allow you to specify whether you want a property group. It's the same as new over here. In this case, we want a property, and the first one is going to be product. So let's go ahead, create the property name. It's going to be product, okay? Let's go ahead, let's create another one, which is going to be ID. And I'm going to take a minute and create all the different metadata. And there we have it. We have created the general group, and now we got the different properties, okay? Now you will notice that we also got the default value, we got the type of data. This is something we're going to cover in the upcoming lessons. You can also input for the properties as a last detail, the description, okay? This is just a guidance to, let's say you're creating a format and you want to guide your BIM modelers so they know which type of data you have to input over here. So let's say that for the description of the product, let's name this, in this field you will define in text the product name. It can also contain numbers, okay? So this is just a guidance when you, for example, hover over property name or metadata. Once we put everything to the practice, it's going to display this small description below the title, okay? So it's going to allow to whoever continues registering the data to visualize which type of description we got over here. So this is just a small guide, more for working purposes, okay? So take a moment, make sure you create the data for the 3 groups or only the group you have selected. In my case, I'll just take a minute to create the extra fields. So in the end, it looks something like this: general, electrical, sanitary, with the referred parameters. And now for the next lesson, we can continue covering the value definition. Alright, so let's take a moment to check out which type of properties we got. So product is going to have alphanumerical values, okay? This only has text. This is a link, okay? Then we got a text, we got a value which can be expressed as a numerical item, okay? We also got a value which can also be expressed as a numerical value, numerical value, numerical value, and numerical value, okay? We also got data, for example, the style, the material, which is a set of options. Let's say that this type of data only has 2 different options. The style can be either classic or be only modern. So you got only 2 options. And for example, material, you only got 3 different options. You got bone type of finish, you got ABS finish, or you got high gloss white glazed finish. Okay, so you only can have 3 different finishes for a product. Okay, so keep these different types of data in mind, because what we can do now is inside ArchiCAD specify which type of data we want to assign. So let's start off with data type over here. You got different types of options. You got string, you got number, you got integer. String, well, it's a general purpose use. You can input special characters, you can input text, you can input number. So it's a general type of data that will allow you to input ABC, 1, 2, 3, and special characters. Pretty much everything is accepted for this option, okay? Then you got number, which will only allow you to input numerical values. I'm not sure if it's going to allow you to input or allow you to, yeah, it's going to accept decimals for this case. So number is, will accept as many decimals as you want to add. Okay, I think only, well, this depends upon your unit settings, also the project unit settings, but integer will only accept full values, full integer values. You can't specify decimal places, or you can't even use a point to specify the decimal values. Okay, then you got specific types of values which we also use with expressions. This is more important once we get into expressions, something that we're going to talk a little bit about in the next section. You can specify whether this value is going to be a length, it's going to be some type of area, it's going to have a volume, or it's going to be an angle. Okay, so this is more useful for expressions, but you can always use them for general purposes. Okay, you also got amazing values such as, for example, true or false. This is quite useful, for example, when you are working with doors. Okay, let's say you got a general door over here. It has a general type of design leaf, and it has an accessory over here which is a pulley, and then has another accessory over here which is a dust plate, dust cover, however you want to call them. And it has another type of accessory over here and something like that. So in a door schedule or door table or door index, however you want to call it, we usually make a general description. It has this accessory, accessory 2, accessory 3, accessory 4, and then we only got check marks for all types of doors. So let's say you got door number 1 over here, you got door number 2 over here, and door number 3. Okay, and you also got the image of the door, which is at the very end. It will display the door type. Okay, so let's say one of these is maybe, I don't know, it's going to be, it has a dust cover or a plate, however you want to call it. Does it have a plate? It can be either an X or it can be either a check mark. So this is where this option is going to be useful, because false and true, when you extract this type of property and document it through a schedule, it's going to convert this into check marks and X's. Okay, so this is one example where you can also use a true or false when you only have 2 possible outcomes. It's quite a useful value, especially for these types of schedules. You also got the tag list and the option set, which in my own experience I don't find too much difference from one and another, but also has minor differences. Tag list, for example, you can create multiple values. You can input a whole paragraph of value. You can say it's a value 1, value 2, and value 3, and it's going to convert the whole paragraph into 3 different values, something like that. And you can select how you want to define the values. Okay. You also got option set, which is one of my favorites, because let's say that we got a value which is going to be maybe the material over here. You got 3 types of finishes. You got bond, ABS, and high gloss. So you can select the 3 finishes, simply register them over here. Let's say that, let's delete this one for now, and let's go to option set. The first one is going to be bond finish. Okay, let's add another value which is going to be ABS, something like that. Okay, and let's add the final value which is going to be high gloss white. Okay, something like that. So it's going to be a checklist where you can select which of these 3 options you want to register right over here. So for example, you press OK, and then you can select whether this is option 1, option 2, or option 3, which is quite useful when you have limited set of values you want to use for a property. So it's going to allow you to specify which type of data you want to use. Okay, and in option sets you can also create as many as you want, and it also gives you the ability to whoever is registering the values to specify multiple choices. Okay, and finally but not least, you also got, besides everything you got over here, you also have the ability to create some type of expression. If you set this to string, you can always go ahead, expression. So expression, how does this work? I'm just going to give you a quick spoiler. I'm not going to explain this in full detail. I rather we practice this in the next section. But let's say you want to start off by maybe quantifying the, let's say, the length of a wall. Let's see, let's search for length over here, curtain wall length. Let's see, we got a general length of the reference line. So let's say that we start out with quantifying the length of the wall, and then we maybe want to multiply this length. Let's say we multiply this by 12.50, which is the amount of bricks we can find in maybe some square meter of a wall. Okay, in this case I'm making a mistake. I should actually quantify not the length of the wall, but let's say how many square meters a wall has, and we simply multiply this times 1250, and we get the amount of blocks or bricks we got in the wall. So pretty much expression is, we could say, Excel formulas inside ArchiCAD. You take a value, you assign some type of operator, and you get something a little bit more powerful. This is a secret in how you can work on your cost evaluation of a project, how you can create advanced quantifications, and in general how you can get the cost of a project. Okay, but this is something we're going to experiment in the upcoming lessons.